this Jordan Peterson thing that you dug up?
Oh, this is him talking about the double helixes. And
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay, we got to
yeah.
do this. We got to do this. We got to do this a second. Then we'll get to. We got to get out of the gutter and get to Farrakhan soon, though.
This is from China.
This is from China.
So this is. So
Give
this
your
is
man a blowjob.
Foxy and Nuwa. I think I've got that right. But I just love that representation. It's so insanely cool, this representation. So you see the sort of the primary mother and father of humanity emerging from this underlying snake-like entity with its tails tangled together. I think that's I really do believe this, although it's very complicated to explain why. I really believe that's a representation of DNA.
It's complicated to explain.
And that representation, that entwined double helix, that is everywhere. You can see it in Australian Aboriginal art, and I'm using the Australians as an example because they were isolated in Australia for like 50,000 years.
Fucking A.
Something you don't learn everywhere.
Fucking A makes you think, doesn't it?
Okay, well, I'm going to buck the trend a little here.
It actually sounds kind of cool.
Okay, so, like, yes, Jordan Peterson is, like, the ultimate we live in a society guy. Like, he's the ultimate, I just, like, smoked a seed blunt, here's what I think guy. But, like, I actually, like, did know a guy who's like, nah, dude, you smoke a seed blunt, you'll come to amazing realizations. He's one of the, like, many stupid guys I've known in my life who are just slightly more stupid than me and, like, made me think I was really smart. But, I do think that is, like, an interesting... That's like the type of thing that I wish was explored by people who like weren't Zeitgeist guy or Jordan Peterson. Because it's like, why is that in all art? That's kind of interesting. But it's like, you know, I'm sure like there's a longer version of the clip where he just has some fucking insane, stupid explanation that he's very self-assured about, you know. But
well, I think that's actually the part that cracks me up, because especially like for this world, I'm like incredibly like woo agnostic, and I'm not like one of these like that's not factual. Like I don't fucking like. I think that more like good left people should be like, well, I don't want to like whatever. Like you should be fucking going on ayahuasca trips, meditating, and like figuring like. Your world is not just Sam Harris bullshit at all. Like,
I 100% believe in astrology. Even if it's not real, it's true. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I believe in a lot of weird, goofy shit that I admit is goofy, but it's like, you believe it, you believe it.
Yeah, why not? If you believe it, you believe it. Exactly. but I think that it's the surety. Like this guy could be like, see, that was because your moon was in retrograde, so you had your period, so therefore we need to legalize child labor.
If a professor, this reminds me of that story in the Toronto whatever paper, because if a professor said, I can't go into why I think this is true.
Well, that's fucked up.
That's why it's funny.
Like, what the fuck am I paying you
That's
for?
what exactly. That's what makes it fucked up.
I mean, I think the subtext to this is like, I feel like a lot of like diehard like men who like Jordan Peterson would watch that clip and be like, yeah, totally, you know, aliens told us about the double helix or whatever his explanation is. But like, you know, if a woman likes astrology, they're like, well, bitches are so fucking stupid. Yeah, you know? And it's like, everyone should have like a dumb thing that they like that has something to it, you know?
I agree with that.
I actually better.
It makes your. I agree with that completely. I actually like that Jordan Peterson not only like he literally has the personality of like a sexist like 1950s like, God damn it, woman, get control of yourself.
Yeah.
He like literally is that. It's like the group and the individual and oh, you son of a bitch. Like it's just this like constant cascade of like imbalanced emotionality and overreaction. And like what's coming out amidst like the sea of tears and histrionics is you should straighten up.
Yeah.
Men need to be men.
Yeah, that's the thing is like he like went into the ancient truths of the universe, and it just fucking like boring like what color is your parachute shit.
Right.
Well, I mean,
right.
I think that like he's just like a shitty version of Joe Rogan.
Oh, I think that's totally true.
Joe Rogan, you could say what like I think he's like easily swayed by people. And maybe like doesn't know as much as he thinks he does, but I think he kind of has like a good heart in some ways. And I don't know what kind of heart Jordan Peterson has. I can't.
That's a very angry one.
It's an angry heart.
Upset.
But that's the new type of guy.
Because bitches be trifling.
Isn't it funny, though, that, like, the new type of guy that everyone loves that is in every, like, every well-represented, like, political or social ideology is just, like, really melodramatic middle-aged men now. It's like after everything changed, like, everything was supposed to have changed and, like, really rapidly in the past few years, but it's like, okay, so... yeah, everything's totally different now. We've changed the culture. So the biggest guys are James Comey, Jordan Peterson.
James Comey's very messy. That's true.
Just a bunch of like melodramatic, fucking catty 60-year-old men. It's so weird.
It is really. That is actually really.
As opposed
really
to like like Indian War veterans and like World War II veterans and that.
Well, you know what it was.
But it's always that's the thing though. It's always been that. But the more that we think we change things, we just get the same shit.
Well, no, and there used to be a little bit more plausible deniability. Like I watched, because I'm a fucking glutton for punishment, I watched that new McCain documentary on HBO. And
fucking can't stand that piece of shit.
Absolutely. But I'm going to say something like, this is just like a sky is blue comment. The fact that dude could basically be like, I was tortured for 5 years is like some objective corollary to all of this shit talking. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like there was at least, and even like fucking John Kerry, I was in my fucking, fly airplanes and shit. Like there was at least in that generation some like bullshit. Usually, I mean, fucking grotesque. Like, I participated in an imperial mass murder in Vietnam.
Yeah, I made my dad let me fly the plane again after I fucked it up.
Right. Well, versus I've been crying in a Toronto classroom.
yeah.
I mean, come on. Like, there's a little difference there.
Well, I think if anything, like, if we could have a whole conversation about how, like, Trump won in this way that he sort of turned everyone into him. Like everyone who paid attention to politics, like started paying more attention to politics in 2016, is now just all they do is consume media, and it makes them fucking crazy.
And that's him.
That's him. They became him. But
dude.
If any, he also like destroyed a lot of people's preconceptions of what is necessary or what's okay or what's the norm. One of those things was with like John McCain. It was like. Where it's like,
do we have that handy?
Yeah, where he kind of has a point where he's like, okay, so is this guy good because he like fucked up being a pilot? That's like why he's an interesting person, why his opinion's worthwhile. And it's like, he's as much of a piece of shit as John McCain, but he's also like right. He's right about that, and I think people saw that. And they're like, yeah, why do we need some like arbitrary sacrifice to enjoy our melodramatic old men?
Let's just get straight to it.
Yeah.
I gotta say though, I think that the problem with Rogan now is that Rogan is another person that's just completely fucking given in to like I'm like a 50-year-old like multi-millionaire actor.
Yeah.
And like absolutely whatever minor annoyance there is to me is completely a macro reflection of the world. So like definitely kids being like crying about Ben Shapiro. Yeah, that's the biggest threat to democracy on planet Earth. Like that's where he really, and also the gender shit to the point where like anybody that obsesses that much about gender to me, I get a little bit like, all right, man.
Yeah, no, there's something like very cruel about it, But
yeah. No, I like the guy, but I feel like he's fallen off in the last like couple. Like he's gotten more into that shit.
I think like wealth and fame is like fame more so is terrible for you. I think it's like one of the worst things that can happen to your brain. And I'm not saying they have it worse than anyone. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying like feel bad for these people, but I am saying that it alters people's perception of the world. Like I was thinking about that Dave Chappelle thing about Martin Lawrence.
Right.
And also, like, I think that money does have this entrancing power to people that's very real. I feel like people come into, like, 7-8-figure sums, and it completely rewires their brain. Because so much of your most people's lives is like, am I going to have enough money to do this? Am I going to have money? Then you get to the point where it's like, I don't have to think about those things anymore. And that's what they call, that's like the $80,000 threshold for like a single person, where you don't have to worry about the things that you did. And then you go higher and higher. And unless you have like a break where you're like, okay, it's like kind of absurd. If I don't have kids, if I don't have a wife, if my family doesn't need this, it's absurd for me to keep all this. I should give a lot of this away.
Right.
You spend more time rationalizing why you should have it. And it makes you disconnect from people. Because for people that are like extremely into the logical vision of the world, there is nothing logical about someone having, fucking $50 million.
Well,
it's
like
fucking obscene.
Now you're talking about fucking communism, dude.
But that's the thing. It's like if you listen to him talk like a few years ago, like he's like
he would
very reasonable. But it's money makes you crazy.
Ditches. Like he should make fucking money.
Yeah, money makes you fucking crazy because you either separate yourself like past a certain point, or you spend more and more time rationalizing why you should have it. And the only way you can rationalize why you should have it is both that everyone and everything in the world is like an existential problem, and that you are so much better than everyone.
So there was a piece that came out, oh man, it's a while ago now, but it was like the economic part of like, it was by the same guy who actually wrote Emotional Intelligence. And he was saying, he's like, it's actually studied that even on like a really basic level, that all of these social interactions that humans need to cultivate in themselves, if they're anywhere on the spectrum from, seriously economically deprived, like I was growing up, or even just like middle class, you have like a situation where, oh shit, I need to stay later at work. My neighbor needs to my kid needs to go over to my neighbor's house and like play with their kids and whatever. So you need to have like a relationship with your neighbor, not just like out of self-interest.
Right.
You just literally need to constantly be relating to other people because you live in a socially embedded way. And then when money cancels all of that, they were doing the research in the piece was like literally like down to the level of like, you don't need to read other people's facial expressions in the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't need to cue into like any type of proper protocol for being human because you can just fucking bypass all of it.
So I like the way I get paid is sort of like a freelancer because I'm like a part owner, proprietor in my own thing.
Right.
I make about like pre-tax, I pay quarterly taxes, and it like usually works out to about like anywhere from like 20 to 33%, depending on like what is deductible and what isn't.
Right.
Make about like $110,000 a year.
Right.
Which is like, I grew up like not really having to worry about things, but I wasn't just sort of completely buttressed by my parents into adulthood.
Right.
More so than other people for sure. But like, I feel like never expecting to have like made that much, because I like sucked at school. I just didn't like it. I sucked at like trying to find work. Anything that's happened to me now is like it's unreal to me. It's hyper real. It makes no sense to me that I just
didn't expect to go anywhere.
Yeah, well, it's like I just like
hyper real
posted my whole life, and then it's like, okay, enough people like your post that they're just gonna give you and your friends like $1 million a year, and you can pay whoever to do whatever. And it's like, okay, I guess. But like my experience with like not expecting to come into that in a very short time was like, holy shit, I can like buy my way out of so many problems, right? Yep. Like any inconvenience that forces people to like depend on each other in some way, I just buy my way out of it.
Right.
Like I got like mugged, and I like my keys were in my wallet and I forgot. And instead of like, like seeing if anyone I knew had spares or like I could stay with someone, I'm like, oh, I'll just like go to a hotel room.
Yep.
And I think that there like became a point where it just like it made me hyper disconnected after a while, because I'm one of those people like left to their own devices. They'll just like sit around and only go to the gym and then play video games with their friends. I'm like that type of guy. No matter what low body fat percentage I get to, or how many, I'm like that type of person.
Nice.
That it made me sort of insane, and I don't know. It made me start like setting aside like a percentage of it I should like give away every month. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, I'm a great person. But just to say, like, the more you hoard it and use it to buy your way out of humanity, it will make you fucking nuts. It will make you fucking insane. And I wish there was something, I wish like, you know, people always talk about how there should be like financial education for like, you know, kids in school, right? Because they'll have like this grinded out lower middle class, temporary class experience that is so typical for people. But I also wish there was something for people that do come into money to tell them, like, you know, you think this is going to make you a lot happier to hoard this to a certain point, but it's going to make you fucking crazy. But it's not good for you.
I hear that about athletes a lot too.
Yeah.
But it's so amazing to me though, just like the perspective, because like, so like I would say like in the last year of my life is the first time in my life ever where there wasn't just like, and it's not, you know, like it's not a high number now, but like I'm fine. There's a lot more that needs to like be done, whatever, but like things are fine. That's the first time in my life I've ever experienced that, right? Like I grew up, my family got like evicted from apartments. We've like, you know, lived in apartments and, you know, and for a variety, you know, combination of reasons, combination of my own like career desires and willingness to take risks. And also the fact that like, I wasn't really suited for taking direction at a lot of places, you know, like I went through this process, but like, and so it's funny because part of like what animates and motivates so much of what I do is just this feeling that like nobody should have that experience and that feeling. And it's fucking disgusting and totally unnecessary that any human being live with that material, psychic, emotional, whatever. And I would say, and I know even on a relative scale, I experienced very less of it compared to a lot of other people, but even just a taste of like, I don't know what's for dinner is fucking horrible and nobody should experience it ever. And then it's funny hearing you because it's like, you're so attuned to it, honestly, just hearing you that like, you're talking about numbers that like, especially in New York City, I mean, there's other people that like, you're like, oh man, that's just like scratching the surface of like their sense of like how to get by. And then I know I have other people who like make millions of dollars a year and their reference point is someone who makes hundreds of millions of dollars a year and they feel deprived.
Well, honestly, my dollar goes farther just from not drinking. That's where like 30% of people's income goes in this fucking city.
That is so true. That is so fucking true. That's why you come in with the like, and we're like, would you like a beer? It's like, do you have a lime-flavored kombucha
I literally
enhancer?
just asked for seltzer when I came here. That's not a fancy drink.
Hey, don't fuck up the bit. Don't fuck up the bit.